Ashley here. Another really brisk morning in Sydney, and so I thought I would talk about something that's really been interesting in terms of conversations in the last few days, and it's all about how well does your team trust, and in fact, is trust even something that you're actively considering as the leader, or that the team is focused on creating and building as one of its key kind of pillars of performance. So before we get into that, let me just check my stream to make sure that we are actually live. And I'm also trying to do this live early because my electricity is going to go off later in the day because they're doing some work in the street. So, okay, there we are. We're live. Okay, so I'll give you the background. So yesterday I was running one of my coaching support sessions for one of my leadership programs. And we were talking, I was talking with one of the participants, a very senior leader, about her plans. So she's recently moved into a new role. She's taken over a team a few months ago, and she's got some great plans to bring the team together. And in particular, what she said was that she was going to be having a meeting this week with her most senior leaders to look at, how they could work together, how they could capitalise on each other's strengths and all of this sort of thing, which is, it's fabulous, particularly in, the times that we find ourselves now. And I can just see a few people coming in to watch, so that's great, because I think this is such an important topic, this whole trust thing. So anyway, she was talking about her plans for her team and to bring this senior leadership cohort together so that they could, work more effectively together. But as the conversation progressed, what I came to realise is that prior to her stepping into this role a few months ago, this group hadn't come together to meet for like months and months and months. And she's been in this role for a few months now, and this is going to be the first time that this team has come together. She's got this great agenda about all the things that she wants to achieve in this initial meeting. And I was curious because I was like, wow, that's a big agenda when these people haven't actually even had a conversation as a group together in, more than 6 months. So how do you facilitate that? How do you get achieve the objectives of the meeting when these people haven't even been talking to each other? And so I asked her a question, which was, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how well do you think your team trusts each other? And, there was a bit of silence, which is okay because we all have to reflect and think about those things. And she said, I've never considered trust in terms of my team before. And I thought, well, that's interesting, and it's a good opportunity. But I think it's something that happens a lot. As the leader, we've got all these things going on. We've got a strategy. We've got a plan. We know what we need to make happen. We need to enlist our team members. But in order for that team to actually operate, in order for that team to support each other, to help each other, all of those sorts of things, we actually need to do some groundwork first. And one of the things that we need to establish is trust. So I'm just going to turn off this banner, which I always forget to do. Okay, so welcome if you're live, and if you're watching the recording, I'd love to know your thoughts on this whole area of trust and building trust in your team. And is it something that you sort of actively think about and try to develop and activate in your team? All right, let me just see what's coming up in my comments here. So I've got a new release of software as well, apparently, on my tech. So I supposedly can now see my comments in a different space. Okay, so if you've got a comment about trust and how it relates to you as the leader and your team, then I'd love to hear that. So anyway, trust. Without it, what can we do? If you've got people in your team who don't know each other that well, maybe that because you haven't been meeting regularly, or maybe you've got new team members, or maybe things have changed. There can be lots of reasons, but if you don't have that trust, then how do they work as effectively together as you would like them to? If they don't know each other and they don't know each other's strengths, then who do they turn to when they need help with something? If they don't know they can rely on each other, then how do they overcome that to actually be able to ask for help or to offer help? If they don't trust each other, then how well do they share information? How well do they communicate? Do you get caught up in things that really they should be able to solve themselves, but because they don't trust each other, the conversations they have, aren't as productive or effective? Trust is a big thing. And I've been talking, in recent, I guess it's months now, about the importance of you as the leader developing, being visible, communicating, messaging, keeping people informed so that they can trust in you as their leader, that they can trust in your leadership, they can trust in the certainty of your leadership and the stability of that. But when we're building a team, we need to do exactly the same thing. We need to create opportunities for trust to grow in our team, for people to get to know each other, for people to understand each other's strengths, for people to be able to have those more open conversations so we can understand what is important and what is important to our team and what's the agenda that we share. If we don't have a shared agenda, then how can I trust that you will actually support what's going on or what the priorities are? And again, how can I rely on you? And if we don't have that trust, it's not building a great foundational platform for our team to become high performing, to actually be on purpose, and to do all the things that we're here to do. So what I guess today what I wanted to kind of flag is, to get you to reflect on how well does your team trust, within the team? And based on whatever the response to that is, what do you need to do to either build that trust or to keep it sustained and supported? Because it's essential for you to be able to move forward. When we have teams that are operating in a dysfunctional way, one of the keys is often that the trust is missing. And I find this particularly with executive teams. If the trust isn't there, they don't operate very well, or as well as they could, as an executive team, as a leadership cohort, that really is committed to a shared purpose for the organisation, and that they live it and breathe it and be it. If we don't have the trust, then how do we champion each other? Can I rely on you to advocate for me or not? I think it's pretty important. So again, comment. Let me know what you think about the area of trust, and is it something that you even think about in relation to your team? Susan, how would you build trust in a dysfunctional team? That's a really good question, and there's lots and lots of things that you need to work through depending on how extensive the level of lack of trust is. So there's a couple of things. There's I don't know you, so I don't trust you, or there's actually I know you really well, and because of that, I don't trust you. So there's kind of an absence of trust, and then there's distrust. Neither of which are great, but how we go about building trust is different. If there's just an absence of trust because I don't know you, then there's some fairly, obvious steps in terms of, building understanding of different people in the team. There's lots of work you can do around, getting people to know themselves and to know each other, offering opportunities for people to work together, making sure that there's really open conversation and creating a safe environment in which that can happen. But if we're talking about distrust, I don't believe that I can actually trust you because of, maybe some evidence or some history or things like that, then we've got more work to do to actually remove the distrust and then begin to build trust. So there's a lot more in it there. I think often when we've got distrust, there's a lot of misunderstanding involved. That's often a big component of it. And so we need to look at, what's contributed to that, and then how do we actually create a new baseline where we can agree on how we're actually going to move forward, because, it's important to us to actually create a stable way of actually working together. And that's often about figuring out what's important to people and how they want to be part of the team. So I hope that is useful, Susan. Okay. I don't think I've got much more else to say this morning. I just really wanted to touch on trust, because I believe it's an absolute foundation. I also think at the moment that while there's been a lot of work in creating, trust and belief in leaders, that they will lead, there perhaps hasn't been enough focus on creating trust within teams, particularly if the team doesn't have regular meetings, if it doesn't, get together to kind of share and buy into the same agenda, then, we just have an absence of trust. And so there are lots of opportunities to get the team together in meetings, to have conversations, to create an agenda that we can all buy into. And by agenda, I mean, strategic direction and a way that we're going to work together to actually achieve that strategic outcome. So I would love to know, what do you think? What do you think about trust? How important do you believe it is? And what do you do, or what do you suggest? So Declan, trust needs to be earned and it takes time. Yeah, I agree with that. But I think there are deliberate things that we can do to actually foster that and to be conscious about that. I love that. Trust arrives on a tortoise and leaves on a hare. Yeah. It's pretty easy to break it down. But I think the stronger the foundation is of trust, then, you set yourself up. So if something doesn't quite work in future, maybe the benefit of the doubt is there, and you can still have, because you trust each other, you can have the conversation about what's not working. And move forward, in a constructive way from there. So, I think that's it for me this morning. I'm going to jump off pretty soon because, as I said, the power's about to go off and I wanted to get my live in before that all happens. So I'd love to know your comments. If you are interested, I'm running another webcast next week, which is around, as a leader, coaching, and particularly coaching with your kind of work from home or distributed team. So if that's of interest to you, then just pop the word coaching into the comments and I'll get the details to you. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you again on a LinkedIn Live soon, and have a great day, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.